It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Hello, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. I'll be your host this morning. You know, America is responding in large numbers. There are a couple of issues which have changed the nature of things today. Two major issues. One, Obamacare is active, and although immediately shut down due to complications. And the government is now shut down. So you've got Obamacare and the government collectively shut down. We're going to talk about those issues this morning. We're going to talk about Obamacare. And our final segment this morning will talk in reference to the truckers and the bikers who happen to apparently be the last group of patriots willing to save America. You know, I got to hand it to these folks. They have been harassed and beaten down by Facebook and all of the other public social media sites. They have fought hard to come back and drive activity with the goal of waking up the sleeping giant, the people of America. I got to give them credit where it's due. And I got to ask America, what are you going to do to support these folks? On October 11th through the 13th, the truckers are going to ride for the Constitution. They're going to call for an impeachment movement with Obama. And they're here to freeze commerce and lock down and starve the beast. There's a couple of other stories that we're going to talk about this morning, not the least of which is Glenn Beck has come out and made a statement, which I want to reiterate a little bit or go over a little bit, in which he's calling for impeachment of Obama and the GOP stars. His quote is, "It's the height of insanity, and I believe it is," what? Treason. So apparently the T word is in play by a major voice. You know, I've used the treason word many, many times over the last couple of years. And I get it. I'm a flea on the elephant's hiney, if you will. But the simple truth is, with the use of the word treason from a media, personality who has the reach and the depth and the breadth of Glenn Beck, I'm glad to see it actually, because it tells me that we are looking at a new a turn, if you will, in the way that the patriots in the United States of America are going to look at and address these issues. So, all right, let's get into our first topic this morning. For starters, the government is now shut down. The plan, which I believe that the Senate Democrats were willfully attempting to accomplish, was basically to lock down the nation and blame it on the Republicans. Frankly, neither party is innocent here. Both parties have betrayed us for a very, very long time. Don't get your Republican hopes up just because they fought on this issue. For the most part, they've been betraying us for decades now, folks. So the truth is, what they ought to be doing today is there are about 13 different appropriations bills that make up the funding of the government in general. And what happened yesterday was the House passed amendment or continuing resolution after CR over and over and over again, each time negotiating with themselves and taking a little bit more out and running it over to the Senate. The Senate, in turn, turned around and said, nope, it's a non-starter. We're not even going to talk about it. We're going to table it. And it went for a no vote. Then the GOP came in the House, went back and negotiated it a little differently and came back with something else that was a little less, onerous from the Senate's perspective, and the Senate tabled that one. And back and forth it went. They went there last night until midnight, and then the Senate decided they were calling it quits and they went home. The House stayed until about 1 o'clock, and then they went home. And here, of course, America sits with a government that is shut down. Not just shut down in the sense that they are fiscally shut down. The real problem here, ladies and gentlemen, is that the government has been shut down to the American people for a very long time. They're all interested in doing their own thing for their own purposes with their own benefit in mind. Now, a couple of quick notes, but one, the feds approved taxpayer subsidies for abortion coverage. And this was all done while all of these budget negotiations were going on. And yet, that's another broken promise out of the Obamacare thing, that taxpayer subsidies would not be used for abortion. In fact, there were court lawsuits fought over this by people who said, well, it's against my religion to fund abortion, and so therefore, I'm not going to participate. But yet, feds have approved taxpayer subsidies for abortion. The Senate has voted to keep the massive subsidy of 76% of their expense, and trust me, they'll all get the golden or platinum plan, or whatever the highest one is, and we're going to pay for it, 76% of it. Sebelius came out this morning and says, we're about to make history on the Obamacare issue. So, what we have is a government that no longer represents you. They're all about making history and building legacy. And honestly, the average American couldn't really give a rat's rear end. They couldn't care less about the legacy of Senator XYZ or Representative ABC or President US URP or President Illegal Alien or President Usurper, the Manchurian candidate who runs our nation. The truth is, most Americans want government to just leave us alone. The vast majority do. Now, it's interesting because GOP favorite came out and talked yesterday about the idea that the real focus of Obamacare is really not about whether or not Americans get any kind of coverage. The real issue with Obamacare and why the government is shut down, because they're so determined to get this approved, is that they are trying to create a new entitlement program that Americans will become hooked on. In fact, this was Michelle Bachmann. She came out and said, Obamacare is like crack. And that the real administration goal here was to get Americans hooked on the crack of Obamacare. Now, I would agree with that statement. In fact, she came out and said blatantly, Obamacare, or Obama, is peddling crack cocaine of dependency to Americans. And the Dems can't wait to addict Americans to Obamacare. Listen, you heard it right out of Harry Reid's mouth himself when he said that when Americans start to use this, they're going to love it. The president said it. So the truth is, that's the reason why they're unwilling to negotiate with the GOP on Obamacare. That's the reason why they're willing to accept a government shutdown. Because ultimately it doesn't really make any difference as long as they get their way. Now, for the record, there's another article out there this morning, and this is on Fox News, that gridlock may force Congress to take down its own website. And because the internet and the website is one of the main ways, and websites, I should say, are one of the main ways in which Congress has an opportunity to speak to the public and for people to be able to find information about what bills are happening and that kind of thing. This is a driven effort to make this more, or to make this more onerous than it is. And I'll tell you why. Just like the sequester, when Obama said, we're going to punish them for their unwillingness to resolve this sequester issue. This, again, is another bald-faced lie. And I'm going to tell you why I know that. I build and develop, my company works and develops websites. That's what we do. Okay? Once that site is up, the cost of being on the air and being and having the website hanging there is very, very minimal. I mean, I get it that they may not necessarily be able to update it very frequently. If they've got to lay off their web developers and their webmasters and say, you can't post the links to this and that and the next thing. But by saying that we're going to shut the website down, that is a willful and intentional method of forcing more damage than is necessary in order to create an unnecessary crisis and prove a point. Now, what they're saying is that it will take the websites of several government agencies down, including the National Park Service, the Federal Trade Commission, and the Library of Congress itself. And the problem with that one, of course, is that the website of the Library of Congress is where you will find all of the information about the Thomas site, where all of the bills are posted and things like that. Funds to operate websites in general are not available. And that's a quote from the director of the communications for the Library of Congress. Visitors to the site, or those who follow a link to an internal page from a search engine result, for example, would see a simple splash page explaining the current status of the federal government. Now, you see, that's a lie. Because bear in mind that those sites are already up. And if you don't understand the hierarchy of how to build a website, I don't want to get into the details of it. But what I can say is this. Once that page is there and it's already linked, you would have to actively go in there and say, I want a splash page to go up in front of this and block it, which would require physical labor on the part of the webmaster. So that's an absolute, unmitigated, bald-faced lie. What they're going to do is put up these splash pages across every page on every government website so that they can tout their position about how the American public is being damaged. It's a lie, ladies and gentlemen. I'm telling you it's a lie because I do this for a living. Now, I get the fact that you may not update it. I get the fact that they may not be able to post any new bills up there. But to block the access to the existing information is criminal. Criminal. Because the real purpose is to make people believe the crisis is worse than it is. And they would actually have to pay somebody to go in there and put up this page that will say your government is currently shut down due to Republican failure to accede to the Congress, to the Senate on Obamacare and the continuing resolution. You see, they're going to use it as a multi-million page propaganda document instead of telling the truth. The real problem here, ladies and gentlemen, is that it is blatantly apparent to everyone that neither the left nor the right, nor any of the political caste, and I don't mean caste as in a Hollywood caste, although this is theater, I mean caste as in the Eastern Indian caste system. There are tiers of societal import. And now we have in America a caste system that says there are the ultra wealthy, there is the political caste, and then there is everybody else. The ultra wealthy direct, plan, and execute through Congress, through the administration, and through the courts, and the rest of us peasantry are left to deal with the havoc that they reap. You see, the real truth is this. As a nation, We have so lost our way that politically, I'm not sure that we can resolve this with elections. Because all we're going to end up doing in 2014 is, in standard style, for the record, 86% of all incumbents are reelected. And the reason for that is people are lazy. They're low information. In other words, they're not willing to go out there and seek and educate themselves, seek information that will give them enough information to make informed decisions. Many times they say, well, listen, my representative is different. Everybody else in Congress stinks, but my guy, my girl, they're good. That's intellectual dishonesty. Plain and simple. If Congress is voting against your best interest, they're not good. The simple truth is that in my home state of Missouri, Senator Roy Blunt, neither Blunt nor McCaskill will be up for election this 2014. All members of the House will. But I got to tell you, the comments on Facebook for Roy Blunt are just staggering. I mean, there is not a single positive comment on his Facebook page. And we're talking about every post he puts up has got hundreds and hundreds. I mean, here's one that he put up 11 hours ago, and it's got 477 comments. 21 hours ago, and it's got 467 comments. One that he put up on the 27th of September has 2,004 comments. I ask you, and I want you to prove this to yourself. And even if you're not a Missourian, you can still go to Roy Blunt's website, Facebook page, to see an example of this. Or I strongly recommend that you go to your own senators' Facebook pages, and you should, number one, be commenting, because that's about the only way you'll ever communicate with them. I grant you they don't read it. They have aides and staff that read it. Isn't that interesting, by the way, the term aides and staff? Aides is used to represent the employees who work for a government employee, an alleged elected representative, and AIDS is a deadly disease. And staph is an infection. Kind of ironic, isn't it? So their AIDS and their staph infections, read and post up on these Facebook pages. Trust me, neither Roy nor Claire nor anybody else sits there and manually types stuff into their Facebook page. These people aren't bothered. They're sitting there having a hot toddy or a single malt scotch while everybody's running around like chickens with their heads cut off. They couldn't give a rat's rear end. And the reason why is simple. They're already living the life. La vida loca. They're treated like kings and queens, like royalty, which our Constitution clearly forbids. They are very, very, very well paid. They act with impunity on virtually an immunity because they defy the law in every respect. They have reinstituted insider trading for themselves so that they can enrich themselves at the expense of all of the other investors who are, a dollar late and a dollar short and a day late on Wall Street. But make no mistake about it. Don't kid yourself for a minute that these people are not privy to all kinds of insider and private information about what corporations are going to merge with who's got a new product they're releasing, where they're going to build a new factory. I mean, Harry Reid has made literally tens of millions of dollars buying land in the middle of nowhere in a desert and then approving a federal highway to run right through it. Ah, there you go. That's the ticket. Now he turns around and he sells the land. He bought it for a couple of $100,000 and he sold it for millions. That's insider trading, folks. It's actually worse than insider trading. He was one of the people who approved the federal highway and voted for it. So he voted in a conflict of interest position. Now, our government is rife with this stuff. Frankly, a shutdown, as far as I'm concerned, and by the way, there have been many, many, many of them. This is not something new. The government has been shut down, I believe it's 17 times since like the 80s. And none of them were, reason to run around and the sky is falling and, all of this screaming crisis, crisis, crisis. Remember from a quote that I've given you many times before, that when you hear from politicians and they scream the word crisis, it's always with the intent that you will respond appropriately and say, then do something, and then they take action. And with that action always comes the derogation and the destruction of your rights, your sovereignty, your individual liberties. James Madison told us, crisis is the rally cry of the tyrant. And make no mistake about it, it is. They will scream crisis. This is the Hegelian dialectic. They create a problem, wait until everyone screams bloody murder, and then provide a solution. And that solution every single time empowers them, reduces your power, and they become more and more and more involved in the everyday aspects of your lives. Ladies and gentlemen, our nation is, for all intents and purposes, descending into a gangland mafia-style system where we have these people who are allegedly representing us who act as consigliaries for the Obama administration and their own best interests, of course. They're godfathers of their respective regions. The truth of the matter is, the House today should have as their only function the following. They should be passing legislation and passing funding, not through a continuing resolution, but through appropriations, which is how government is supposed to work. You don't fund everything through a continuing resolution to borrow a little bit more money to get through a month. I mean, you wouldn't run your household that way, borrowing a month's worth of money at a time. How's that a way to run a government? There's been no budget submitted. Where's the budget? It's due October 1st. Where is it? There isn't one because they don't want a budget because a budget constrains them. So what they do is they pass these continuing resolutions to basically hide from the American people from the fact that there is no budget. There hasn't been a budget since Obama has become president. 5 years. We had one last year that really got torn apart and really never even became a legitimate plan. Look, the simple truth is this. The House today should be doing nothing other than passing appropriation bills for everything in the budget, everything in the government with the exception of Obamacare. That's it. Pass them all over to the Senate and go home. And let the chips fall where they may at that point. Do nothing but go out there and educate the American people that we have made so many attempts and outline them in writing very clearly for all to see. And put out, in fact, the GOP, if you were smart, you'd be putting out a piece that says, in every newspaper, on every website that you could, submit press releases that say, these are the efforts we've taken. This is what's happened. These are all the bills that we submitted. We've made every effort to do this. And here's the result. And now, until the Senate acts, our hands are tied. And that's it. All right. We're going to take a break. When we return, we're going to talk a little bit about the issue of Obamacare and how it opened and shut today because it's crashed already. Basically, you can't create an account because, well, the system has crashed. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And I also want to make you informed of something I put up on my Facebook page this morning. So we'll be back in just a moment. There's some dire information going on here with Obamacare, and you need to be aware of it because today is the first day of open enrollment. So you can't enroll. Utter failure on day one. Epic fail. Epic fail. All right, folks, we're going to return in just a moment. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. I'm your host. You can find us on the web by going to americasvoicenow.org. You can find us on Facebook by going to facebook.com/America's Voice Now. And you can find us also in this, every other program that we do on YouTube at youtube.com/America's Voice Now. We'll be back and return in just a moment. Stick with us. This should be an interesting segment on Obamacare.